गणानां त्वा गणपतिं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पतान् शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनं श्रीमहागणाधिपतये नमः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्म उपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मेस्तु तदात्मनिरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Dear friends, we are in this mantra Pratibodha Viditam Matam. Pratibodha Viditam Matam Amrutatvam hi vindate Atmana vindate Viryam Vidyaya vindate Amrutam. There are 4 parts in that mantra. Pratibodha Viditam Matam is the first part. On that line only there is a lot of discussion which is going on, and Shankaracharya has first given the correct interpretation, how it has to be taken in the overall context of what the Upanishads say, because we have to see what is the overall purport, what is the overall message of the Upanishads, and from that point of view and in that context we have to interpret this particular compound word called Pratibodha Viditam. So as I was saying, this compound word called Pratibodha Viditam has been interpreted by different people in different ways. So Shankaracharya has given the interpretation, saying that Pratibodha is Bodham Bodham Prati, that is in every Bodha, in every cognition. Bodha means cognition. Then Pratibodha Viditam. Viditam, this and the last two have to be connected. That is Pratibodha Pratyagatmataya Viditam. Pratyagatma means the very self, the very essence, the very light which is illuminating every cognition. So in that manner it has to be understood. When it is understood in that manner, then such person is said to be knowing the thing quite well. Matam. Matam means it is known well by someone who knows this Atma as the illuminating force behind every cognition. So that is how Shankaracharya has interpreted. And then he also discussed this argument of some other argument, saying that it is Bodha Kriya Karta. So that is, Atma is the cognizer, Atma is the knower. Just as when you see the branches of trees moving, then you presume the presence of wind, and then you say, oh, this is the wind is responsible for this thing, wind is the Karta. It is not Karta, because if you say that, you are making it a Karta. You are making it a Karta, whereas Atma is Asanga, Atma is not connected with anything. Then Atma becomes a dravyam, it becomes a substance, it becomes anitya, it becomes something which is decaying in nature. So all these things are not, they are all against the Shruti. Atma is basically Bodha Swarupa, the very nature of consciousness. Then we came to the Kanada Matam. Kanada means that Vaisheshika system of philosophy. There was a doubt in the what I told in the last class. Somebody raised a doubt regarding Smrutyutpatti Niyama. It was not clear, it seems. Smrutyutpatti Niyama Anupapattihi Apariharya Syat. That is where there was some doubt. I will also explain the Kanada Matam totally again. Kanada Matam, that is a Nyaya. Kanada and Nyaya are one and the same. I told you Kanada, that is called the Vaisheshika system of philosophy. The Nyaya system of philosophy, which was propounded by Gautama, sage Gautama, he wrote Nyaya Sutra. Kanada wrote Vaisheshika Sutra. These two are called complementary darshanas or sister twin darshanas because of a very close approach to the nature of things. So they say that jnanam is something which is produced. It is something which is produced in the mind by the contact between Atma and Manas. Atma Manasa Sanyujyate. That is what they say. Atma comes and interacts with the mind. Sanyujyate means Sanyoga Sambandha. Logicians, they talk about different sambandhas. They relate, for example, they say Samyoga Sambandha, There is what is called Samavaya Sambandha. There is what is called Sanyoga Samavaya Sambandha. Sanyoga Samyukta Samavaya Sambandha. Like that they differentiate. Very, very fine distinction they do make. We need not bother about that. But here, of course, only two Sambandhas are used. Samyogajaha. Sanyoga is just coming into contact. For example, I keep this pen on the table. This pen is in contact with the table. That is what is called Sanyoga Sambandha. The book is on this table. The book is in Sanyoga Sambandha with this table. Samavaya, when I say Samavaya, for example, this redness of the pen, it is something which is there inherent in that. The redness of a flower, that is what is called Samavaya Sambandha. So these people, they say, Karnadas, they say, Atma Manas Sanyogajaha Bodhaha. Bodha means cognition or intelligence. Intelligence is something which is born because of the Atma Mana. They do understand, they do admit that there is some entity called Atma. And then it comes into contact with the mind, and then because of that contact, this Bodha is born. Intelligence is born. Whereas Vedanta says intelligence is never born. Intelligence is always there. It is aja. There is no question of separate, there is no say date of birth or time of birth for that intelligence. And Atmani Samavaiti. So Samavaiti means Samavaya Sambandhena Tishtati. That is, its relationship with this the relationship between the intelligence and the manas, and the Atma is Samavaya Sambandha. Intelligence and manas, Samavaya Sambandha. That is, just as the color redness of a flower is actually inhering in that, it is inhering in that. The Sambandha is called Samavaya, and it is translated as inherence. So that this relationship between intelligence and Atma is that Samavaya Sambandha, they say. It is produced, and once it is produced, it is in Samavaya Sambandha with that. So then here he says, then what are the say defects if we accept this thing? Asmin pakshetu dravyama achetanam dravyamatram brahma. So here again, what will happen? Then again it will become a dravya. Whatever is interacting with something else, it is a savayavi. Whatever is interacting with something else is a savayavi. Only when you have some limbs or some organs, one organ is interacting with some other organ, then that is how it is savayavi. When you say savayavi, that is something which is having some limbs or parts, it is something which is delimited. It is very confined. It is not vibhu. It is not all pervading. It is not niravayava. Niravayava means something which is all pervading. Niravayava, where you can't visualize any parts. It's something like the sky. You can't take a sword and slash the sky into pieces, nor can you differentiate the sky. Only for name's sake you can differentiate the sky between a pot space and a room space and then cave space or whatever it is. But then the space is space everywhere. It can't be distinguished. So here, if you accept this Kanada's say point of view, then these defects will come. Asmin pakshepi achetanam dravyamatram brahma. It becomes a dravya, it becomes a substance. Iti. Itya, then with vijnanamanandam brahma, etc. Shrutis, they will be negated. They will be affected. Vijnanam anandam brahma. Brahma is something which is of the nature of pure consciousness. So that sort of thing will be say affected by if you accept the contention of the logicians. Then Atmano Niravayavatvena Pradesha Bhavat. Then you see, Atma is Niravayavam. To that extent, that man also is saying, who? The logician. The logician also is saying, Atma is Niravayavam, he is also accepting. But at the same time he says, he says it is coming into contact with the mind. Atmanaha Niravayavatvena Pradesha Bhavat. It is something which is not confined to a place. It is not confined to a Pradesha. Pradesha means a place. It is not there in a particular location. And so, what will happen? It is in continuous contact with this manas. It is in perennial, continuous contact with this manas. So, that is what he says. Atmanaha niravayavatvena pradesha bhavat nitya samyuktatvacha manasaha. Nitya samyukta. Samyukta means which is having samyoga sambandha. That which is having samyoga sambandha is called samyukta. That which is in contact is called samyukta. So the Dritya Samyuktatvacha Manasaha. So this is something which is always perpetually engaged with Manas. So when it is perpetually engaged with Manas, what will happen? Smrutyutpatti niyama anupapattihi apariharya syat. So there is a defect which you are not going to surmount. Apariharya means you cannot surmount, you cannot overcome it. Apariharya, you can't wish it away, you can't surmount, you can't overcome it. What is the defect? Smruti utpatti niyama anupapattihi. Smruti utpatti niyama. In any normal cognition, there is a niyama. What is that? There is a niyama means there is a rule. Rule means there is something which we commonly see. What is that? You have an experience, and then after some time, or immediately after that also, maybe in the very next minute you can recall, after 10 days you can recall, after 15 days you can recall, certain things you may recall, certain things you may not recall. For example, what you ate about a week ago, you may not recall. what lunch did you have about a week ago, you will not recall. But some other contact, some other important event, you will recall. So like that, Smruti is something which is distanced by, there is a time gap between that. Time gap between the experience and the Smruti, isn't it? But here, if the Atma is in perpetual contact with this Manas, that Niyama will not be there. It is in perpetual contact, so that Smruti, that particular experience will continue to be there throughout, because Atma is in touch with everything at all times. Atma is in touch with everything at all times, because you are saying that Atma is Niravayava, and at the same time contact with this Manas, it is in touch with everything at all times. So this Smrutyutpatti Niyamaha, this sort of time gap, etc. will not arise. And even at the time of cognition, suppose you are having a fresh cognition, even then there is a Smruti also there. So the mind has to be clouded, but it is not happening. That is not the experience. Our experience is that we can only cognize one thing at a time. If I am seeing this now, I am seeing this only. If I am remembering something, I am remembering one thing only. So the mind is only having one vritti at a time, isn't it? But if you accept this thing, there will be no such niyama. All things will be clouding and simultaneously all things will be there in the mind. In fact, Anandagiri also writes the same thing. I will just read out what Anandagiri writes. Anandagiri writes, Yugapat sarvamurta sanyogitvam sarvagatatvam atmanaha sambhavati. Yugapat means simultaneously. Anandagiri on this particular point, Smrutyutpatti Niyama, he writes in his commentary, Yugapat, that is simultaneously, sarvamurta sanyogitvam, that is Atma is in touch with all things at all times. Sarvamurta sanyogitvam. Sarvagatatvam atmaraha. It is also in touch with the Manas at the same time, and also in touch with all other objects. Atmanaha sambhavati. Then grahana kalad anyakale eva smrutinam utpattihi iti niyamaha vaisheshikasya na upapadyate. Grahana kalad anyakale eva smrutinam utpattihi. Smruti, when does it arise? Grahana kalad anyakale. Grahana kala means the time of experience. Grahana means here experience. When you are grasping, Grahana is here grasping. Grahana kala is the time of experience. Grahana kala anyakale eva smrutinam utpattihi. This smruti or memory arises only after, your cognition has taken place. That sort of niyama will not be possible if you accept the contention of this Vaisheshikas. Then memory is basically, it is after an event. So that rule will not be possible if you accept the contention of the Vaisheshika. Then he says, Grahana kalepi smrutyutpatti prasangacha samskaravad atma manas sanyogasya avisheshat. So this Atma also is having all these samskaras in it. Samskaras means it has seen something and then it is having a samskaras of all things. So samskaravad atma manaha. Samskaravad atma, that is the Atma is having samskaras of all the objects and it is having interaction with this mind. So grahana kalepi smrutyutpatti prasangacha. So even when you are having a new experience, you are also having smruti. So there is a total confusion, a chaotic situation. So that situation has to arise if we have to accept your contention. But it is not happening. So that is what he says. So is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So anyway, we have to think because all these lines, we have to slowly dwell on these lines. Only then the meaning sinks into the mind. So smrutyutpatti niyama anupapatti apariharya syat. Then one more problem. Samsarga dharmitvam cha atmanaha shruti smruti nyaya viruddham kalpitam syat. So there is another thing which all these shrutis, smrutis, etc. say. What do they say? Atma is asamsargi. It does not is not in contact with anything. It is like that Surya, sun's light, which is just falling equally on all things and then but is not affected by anything. It is just an illuminer of things but not affected. It is not coming into contact with anything. So all these things, they will be, all those sayings of the Shruti will be affected if we accept these people. Then asangaha nahi sajjate, asaktam sarvabhrut, etc. He is quoting something. Then nyayascha. Nyayascha means even logically also. What is that? Gunavat, gunavata sanyujyate na atulya jatiyam. Gunavat means something which has got certain characteristics. Guna is a characteristics, a property. Gunavat, something which is having some dharma, some property or characteristic. It will interact with something which is also having some characteristics, but not with something which is totally not having any characteristics. Nirguna. One is nirguna and then you are having a saguna. So saguna and nirguna cannot combine. A gunavat gunavata sanyujyate. One thing which is having some properties. A salt will react with something water. The salt, some particular acid may interact with some other thing and then produce some other compound. But something which is totally nirguna, that nirguna cannot come into contact with this saguna. So that is it. Gunavat gunavata sanyujyate na anya jatiyam. This is totally anya jatiyam. Means Atma is anya jatiyam. Then anya jatiyam means it belongs to a different class. Then ataha nirgunam nirvishesham sarva vilakshanam kenachidapi atulya jatiyena sansrujyate ityetad nyaya viruddham. So that is nirgunam nirvishesham. There is no vishesha in that. So such say Atma kenachidapi atulya jatiyena, by whatever say substance, with whatever substance of any other class, it will not come into any sort of contact. So that is it. Is it okay? Yes. So sansrujyate ityetad nyaya viruddham bhavet. Then tasmat nitya alupta jnana swarupa jyotiratma brahma ityayam arthaha. So pratibodhiti sarvabodha bodhrutve atmana siddhyati. So this sarvabodha bodhrutve means it is the witness. Here you have to note the word sarvabodha bodhrutve. This bodhrutva does not mean knowership. Bodha means knower. Bodhrutvam means knowership. There is no such word, but then in Vedanta we do coin such words in order to explain. Unfortunately, all these the pratyayas which are there in Sanskrit, they cannot be translated into English. So we have to coin some words. So this bodhrutva, it does not mean knowership. It means witness. You may note down there. Huh? Sarvabodha bodhrutve. So unless it is the witness of all these things, then this the sentence cannot be explained. Pratibodha viditam cannot be explained. Then tasmat pratibodha viditam iti yatha vyakhyata eva asmabhihi. So whatever we commented, that is the proper contention. So then, next I think from here we have to read. Let us read. Yat punaha swasamvedyata प्रतिबोध विदितम इत्यस्य वाक्यस्य अर्थो वर्ण्यते तत्र भवति सोपाधिकत्वे आत्मनः बुद्ध्युपाधिस्वरूपत्वेन भेदं परिकल्प्य आत्मना आत्मानं वेत्ति इति संव्यवहारः आत्मन्येव आत्मानं पश्यति स्वयमेव आत्मना आत्मानं वेत्थ त्वं पुरुषोत्तम इति. Okay. So here, of course, there is we also hear statements such as manasaiva anudrashtavyam. Of course, that is not here. I am just saying. Manasaiva anudrashtavyam. Atma has to be known by manas only. It is said like that. Then in the last class, I think I was telling another thing also. That is Swasamvedyatvam Dhyanena Atmani Pashyanti Kechid Atmanam Atmana. I noted it somewhere. Anyway, so there is another saying, Dhyanena Atmani Pashyanti Kechid Atmanam Atmana Atmanam Atmana Pashyanti. So you know Atman by Atma. So are there two Atmas? How are we going to explain? So that is why he is having this discussion. So Yat Punaha Swasamvedyata. Yat Punaha means if we say like this, Yat Punaha, if we say that Swasamvedyata, that is knowing one by oneself. Swasamvedyata, knowing yourself by yourself. Knowing oneself by oneself is Swasamvedyata. Pratibodha viditam ityasya vakyasya arthaha varnyate. If you say that the meaning of this word Pratibodha viditam is knowing oneself by oneself only, then you have to remember Tatra Bhavati. Tatra Bhavati means there a situation arises. Tatra Bhavati means there a situation arises. You have to remember that Sopadhikatvam Atmanaha. What does your book say? Sopadhikatve Atmanaha, Sopadhikatvam Atmanaha.
Sopadhikatve.
Okay, there is another Pathantaram which says Sopadhikatvam Atmanaha. That is also correct. Actually, that is, I feel that is better. It is more clear rather. Atmanaha Sopadhikatvam. So, which means here you are talking about two Atmas. One is a Nirupadhika Atma, one is a Sopadhika Atma. So, if you want to understand the Nirupadhika Atma, you have to catch hold of the Sopadhika Atma, and then through this Sopadhika Atma, you have to reach the Nirupadhika Atma. So, that is the meaning here. So, this is something which is told for a sadhana dasha. Sadhana dasha or abhyasa dasha. So, for practicing, in order to know what is that Brahman, so you are actually creating some sort of artificial difference within the Atma, artificial distinction within the Atma, saying that one is a Sopadhika Atma and one is a Nirupadhika Atma, though in reality, though it is at the absolute level, it is only Nirupadhika, it cannot be Sopadhika. You are just tentatively creating a difference, a sort of artificial difference between a Sopadhika Atma and a Nirupadhika Atma, and then through this Sopadhika Atma, you are catching hold of that Nirupadhika Atma. So that is the meaning of this line, Atmanyeva Atmanam Pashyati. By Atma, you are knowing Atma. Because when you say anything called Vedyatvam, Vedyatvam means knowing something. When you say you know something, it is different from you. Isn't it? When you say you know something, it is something, whatever you know, it is something different from you. And then you are the knower, there is something which is known, and then there is what is called knowledge, there is a Triputi. But in Atma Jnana, that Triputi is not there. When you realize this Brahman, you just remain in that position. Then you don't say I am Brahman. When you say I, you are again distinguishing yourself from that. This is a peculiar position where you cannot say. So that is why this Atma drops, this I drops off. This I has to drop off if, in the case of a person who really knows Brahman, he is in that state of Sat and Chit. He catches hold of that Sat and Chit, and then he removes all these Nama Rupas. So that is actually the meaning of Pratibodha Viditam. You see, in all these bodhas or cognitions, you have these 5 elements called Asti, Bhati, Priyam, Rupam, Namachet, Yamsha, Panchakam. These 5 things are always there. Asti, Bhati, Priyam, Nama, Rupam. So, in all these 5 things are there. So, Pratibodha Viditam man, what is he doing? That is, when you are saying that this Pratibodha Viditam is something which is a manana, which is there for manana, then what is it that this sadhaka has to do, this seeker has to do? This man has to develop the practice of dismissing the names and forms, just to stay with this Sat and Chit. Just to stay with that Sat and Chit. So then he realizes, and then he also realizes his own self. So in this Sopadhikatva, there is what is called duality, but tentatively this sort of dualist approach is accepted, because through this dualist approach you are going to a non-dualistic result. Through this dualistic approach you are reaching a non-dualistic realization, understanding. So that is what we have to see there. So this samvedyatvam. So here again Anandagiri writes one point. Yat punaha svasamvedyata. Okay, he writes. So he says whatever is known is actually distinct from the knower, just as the knower of a pot. Just as the pot is different from the knower. Then so svasamvedyatvam is not possible in a real sense. In real sense, this svasamvedyatvam is not possible. But you have to attribute some Atma Bhava, and then you have to create some sort of artificial difference between Buddhi as this Atma. You tentatively call this Buddhi as Atma, and then catch hold of real Atma through this Buddhi. So svasamvedyatvam vastavam nopapadyate. This is Anandagiri. I am reading Anandagiri. Svasamvedyatvam vastavam nopapadyate. That is, real svasamvedyatvam is not possible. But you are making an artificial difference. That is what he says. Tataha, therefore, buddhyadau atma bhavam aropya. So you are actually attributing this atma bhava in buddhi. You are calling that as tentatively as atma, and then aropya atmana tasya vedyatvam vachyam. So from that vedyatvam you are saying. Swasamvedya. So this Shruti says atmanaiva atmanam pashyati. So this is a sort of conditioned atma which you are tentatively visualizing. So that is what he says. So buddhyupadhi swarupatvena. So that is what he is saying. Let us say tatra bhavati sopadhikatve atmanaha buddhyupadhi swarupatvena. That is, having visualized a distinction in atma, that is, having visualized buddhi itself as atma. Buddhi upadhi swarupatvena. This buddhi, what is buddhi? Buddhi is actually an upadhi. So you tentatively call this upadhi as atma. Buddhi upadhi swarupatvena. Tentatively call this buddhi, which is an upadhi in reality, you tentatively call it as atma. So that is what he says. Buddhi upadhi swarupatvena bhedam parikalpya. Parikalpya means having visualized such sort of artificial difference. Atmana atmanam veti iti vyavaharaha. So you notice the use of words. Vyavaharaha. It is only vyavahara, it is not reality. Shankaracharya's words we have to very carefully follow. Some vyavaharaha. It is just a vyavahara only, it is not reality. Because this real swasamvedyatvam is not there. It is only some vyavahara. It is just a vyavahara. So these words like this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad line, Atmanyeva Atmanam Pashyati, Swayameva Atmana Atmanam Vetta, we have to understand from this point of view that it is not a Swasamvedyata in reality. There is some sort of artificial difference between, which has been created. A Sopadhika Atma, Nirupadhika Atma, a knowing Atma and a known Atma. So like that. One thing which is actually the knower and something which is known, though it is not actually there. Is it okay? Yes. Then, iti, Purushottama iti. Then, natu nirupadhikasya atmanaha ekatve swasamvedyata parasamvedyata va sambhavati. Okay. So, in reality, nirupadhikasya atmanaha. For this Atma which is a Nirupadhika, real Atma is actually Nirupadhika. In that, and that is only Ekatve. Nirupadhika Atmanaha Ekatve Sati. Because it is only one. There are no two things in that. Ekatve Swasamvedyata Parasamvedyata va Sambhavati. There is no question of knowing oneself. One consciousness knowing another consciousness. It is not possible, isn't it? When you say consciousness is only one. There cannot be two consciousnesses. So, there is no, consciousness is Ekarupa, and that Ekarupa, there is no question of Swasamvedyata or Parasamvedyata. All things, they are in that. Whatever duality you can visualize, whatever duality you can conceptualize, it is all in that consciousness only. And there is no question of Swasamvedyata for consciousness itself. You follow? Yes, sir. For consciousness, from the point of view of consciousness, there is no question of Swasamvedyata, Parasamvedyata. Whereas for Upadhis, you and I are Upadhis. For Upadhis, there is a possibility of Swasamvedyata, Parasamvedyata. you see some object, I see some object. So for these things, upadhis, it is possible, but not from the point of view of absolute consciousness. So swasamvedyata parasamvedyata va na sambhavati. Then samvedana swarupatvat samvedanantarapeksha cha न संभवति यथा प्रकाशस्य प्रकाशांतरापेक्षा न संभवः तद्वत् प्रकाशांतरापेक्षया न संभवः प्रकाशांतरापेक्षया न संभवः तद्वत्. So this is Atma is samvedana rupam. So that is what he says, samvedana rupatvat, means because Atma is of the nature of samvedana. Samvedana means just awareness, just consciousness. Samvedana swarupatvat, then samvedanantara peksha cha na sambhavati. So there is no need for another knower. Atma itself is the thing which is of the nature of consciousness. There is no need for somebody else to know that. It is the very nature of consciousness. So samvedana swarupatvat, samvedanantarapeksha. There cannot be another knower. There cannot be another consciousness in order to know this particular, another knowledge or another consciousness to know this knowledge. Na sambhavati yatha prakashasya prakashantara na sambhavah. So this is there any print mistake? What does your book say? Prakashasya
यथा प्रकाशस्य प्रकाशान्तरापेक्षया न संभवः तद्वत्.
ओहो, अपेक्षया न संभवः. So this prakashantarapeksha na sambhava. There is no need for this one particular light in order to know another light. This room is full of light. We need not again bring a torchlight and then switch it on. So prakashantarapeksha na sambhavati. So likewise, for knowledge, there is no need for another knowledge. For consciousness, there is no need for another consciousness to come and illuminate. Let me see whether there is any more point in this. Dhyanena atmani pashyanti keshid atmanam atmana. Okay. Dhyana. Okay. So this is, the point here is, what all is the difference which we are making between sopadhika atma and nirupadhika atma is an artificial difference. And for what? It is sadhana dasha. And for again, what sadhana for what? Because Gita also says, dhyanena atmani pashyanti keshid atmanam atmana. That is, in that dhyana, dhyana means here, nididhyasanam. Nididhyasanam means that brahmakara vritti. In that brahmakara vritti, that tattvamasi aham brahmasmi, in that brahmakara vritti, when your mind is continuously dwelling in that, then after some time that vritti drops off. That vritti drops off and you remain in that, in that state of pure awareness. In that state of pure awareness, because, but you are using that vritti in order to know Brahma. You are using that brahmakara vritti in order to know Brahma. And that brahmakara vritti is possible through this upadhi. Upadhi is that buddhi. So that is how we say atmanaiva atmanam pashyati, or otherwise atmanyeva atmanam pashyati. So buddhi is an upadhi where this brahmakara vritti is created, and through this vritti you are doing this sadhana, and then ultimately when the vritti drops off, the upadhi's relevance goes, and then you are in that in that state of awareness. So that is what it is. So you are practicing in a duality mode, and you are realizing that non-dual self. So that is the Dvaita Rupa Abhyasa and Advaita Rupa Phalam, as one teacher said. Dvaita Rupa Abhyasa and Advaita Rupa Phalam. So that is the say overall meaning of this particular passage. Let us come to this Bauddha. Bauddha Pakshe tu, Bauddha Pakshe Swasamvedyatayam tu Kshanabhanguratvam निरात्मकत्वं च विज्ञानस्य स्यात् न हि विज्ञातुः विज्ञातेर्विपरिलोपो विद्यते अविनाशित्वात् नित्यं विभुं सर्वगतं सवा एष महान् अज आत्मा अजरः Amaraha, Amrutaha, Abhayaha,
Amaraha, Amrutaha, Abhayaha,
Ityadya Shrutayo Badhyeran.
Ityadya Shrutayo Badhyeram.
Okay. So now we are coming to this Bauddha Paksha. Here this Vijnanavada Buddhism, that is what is countered here by Shankaracharya. Vijnanavada. Vijnanavada Buddha, in fact these people also, they use the same word Swasamvedyata. This Vijnanavada Buddhists also, they use the word Swasamvedyata in a totally different sense. So they say that Swasamvedyata, they say, or they also say that knowledge is something which is born. They say that knowledge is something which is born. They do not accept Atma or anything. But then knowledge is something which is born, but then it is totally momentary. Just Shana, Shanikam. And then you see something now, and then by the time, in the very next minute, that cognition goes and another cognition comes. So that is what they say. Shanabhanguratvam, Niratmakatvam cha Vijnanasya syat. So Jnanam is a sort of a stream of momentary cognitions. According to them, Jnanam is something which is a stream of momentary cognitions. One momentary cognition comes, it dies. A cognition comes, it dies. So I guess so like that, a stream of such cognitions, they keep on coming. So when you are seeing something, whatever your knowledge is totally momentary. And again the next moment you see a totally new object. So that is their say contention. Then Advaita on the other hand says Jnanam is something which is Atma Swarupa. Jnana is something which is Atma Swarupa. It is neither born nor dies. It is always there. It is never born nor dies. So in the Buddhists, what they say that it arises in the mind and then it dies, that is something which is not correct, because Advaita talks of this Sakshi Jnana, this Jnana which is permanent, Jnana which is illumining every object. So if we accept the contention of this Buddhist, this Shanabhanguratvam and Niratmakatvam Syat. Syat means a situation will arise. Such a situation, Syat means it will be like that. Syat. Say Vijnanasya Syat means the situation will arise where Vijnanam will become Shanabhanguram, Niratmakam also. So this Vijnanam will become momentary. Whatever knowledge it is there, it is momentary. And then this Niratmakatvam. So Atma will also lose its existence, because the moment you see, it is changing. The next moment it is dead and gone, and another thing is there. So like that. Then this Shrutis, all these Shrutis like Nahi Vijñātuhu Vijñātehe Viparilopo Vidyate Avinashitvat. So this is a very, very clear counter to what the Buddhists say. Nahi Vijñātuhu. Vijñātuhu means for the knower. Vijñāta is knower. Vijñātuhu is Shashti Vibhakti. That is possessive case. That is for the knower. Vijñātehe. Vijñātehe means for that knowledge. Vijñātihi is knowledge. Vijñātehe is again Shashti Vibhakti. Possessive case. For the knower of the knowledge, there is no lapse. Viparilopaha. Viparilopaha means failure. Viparilopaha, that failure or absence. Na drushyate, na vidyate. So, for the knower, there is always this knowledge thing, the thing called knowledge, it never fails. So, for this knowledge is something which is never lost. Because, why is it so? Because avinashitvat, it is indestructible. It is indestructible. So, knowledge is something which is never absent. So, nahi vijñātuhu vijñātehe viparilopo vidyate. So, this is a line from what is this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So, vijñāta is knower. Vijñātuhu means for the knower. Vijñātehe means of the knowledge. Viparilopaha means absence, failure. Na drushyate. Why? Avinashitva, that is something which is indestructible. Knowledge is something which is indestructible. Then Nityam Vibhum Sarvagatam. Nityam is knowledge is something which is eternal. Then Vibhu actually means all pervading. But then here of course slightly different, because Sarvagatam also is there. Sarvagatam again is all pervading. Vibhu is something which is overlording everything. Vibhu, which is overlording everything and which is pervading everything. That is again from Kena Upanishad. Then Sava Yesha Mahan Aja. So this is something, this Atma is something which is Mahan, this is mighty, great. Aja, This Atma, that is intelligence, is never born. Aja means that is never born. Then Mahan Aja Atma, Ajaraha, Amaraha, when it is never born and never dies, it means that there is no Jara. Jara means old age. There is no Jara. Amaraha, it is say immortal. Amrutaha, Abhayaha. Amrutaha is again same thing. Amrutaha, it is ever living. Then Abhayaha. Abhayaha means, we have seen that statement called Dvitiyadvai Bhayam. When there is a duality, there is what is called Bhaya or apprehension. When it is only one, there is no question of fear. So here, that is why Abhayaha. So that means which is one. It is only knowledge, is only one entity. So that is why there is no Bhaya in it. So that is it. So Ityadya Shrutayaha Badhyeran. All these Shrutis will be affected, they will be negated if you accept the contention of the Buddhists. So that is the Buddhist thing, which is the Buddhist argument, which is refuted by say Shankaracharya. Then let us see the other next line. Yat punaha pratibodha shabdena nirnimitto bodhaha pratibodhaha yatha suktasya ityartham parikalpayanti sakrud vijnanam pratibodha ityapare nirnimittaha sanimittaha sakrudva asakrudva pratibodha eva hi saha. Okay, here we are coming to a totally different interpretation of the word pratibodha. Earlier we have used this word as a samasa, isn't it? Pratibodham, bodham, prati is pratibodha. Then pratibodha pratyagatmataya viditam, that is known as the pratyagatma or the very self of every cognition. Bodha, there we took it as just cognition. But here, bodha is used as realization. Bodha, cognition is different from realization. Cognition is cognition of a pen, cognition of a book, etc., etc. But here we are using it for realization. Suppose you imagine a person, somebody is sleeping, someone else goes and wakes him up. He gets up. That is, waking up is called pratibodha. And figuratively, use that word sleeping. Figuratively, you say that somebody is in ajnana. He is in that deep sleep of ajnana or ignorance. The teacher goes and wakes him up. And then student wakes up. So that is what is pratibodha. Guruna pratibodhitaha. Suptaha purushaha. Anyena pratibodhitaha. Suppose I say, suptaha purushaha. A person who is sleeping, anyena pratibodhitaha, he has been woken up by somebody. So again, when it comes to ajnana, ajnana is again a deep sleep, isn't it? So in that deep sleep, somebody is there, and guruna pratibodhitaha, he has been woken up. So in that sense, this bodha shabda is used here. So bodha, you can note down here, yat punaha pratibodha shabdena nirnimitto bodhaha. Nirnimitto bodhaha is there, isn't it?
Yes.
So there you can note down as realization. Bodha is not cognition, it is realization here. Yat punaha, okay, when you come to another point of view, pratibodha shabdena nirnimitto bodhaha. Nirnimittaha bodhaha. That is, nimitta means a cause, some reason. That is, you do some Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasa, etc., etc., and then over a period of and all this yoga, abhyasa, self, Atma Sanyama, and all these things, Chitta Shuddhi. Then after Chitta Shuddhi, you come to Shravanam, Mananam, and all these things. Then you get Bodha. So that is something you have done a lot of background effort. No, but here, Nirnimittaha, not caused by anything. As in the case of some Shuka and Vamadeva, some stories some of these examples which we see in our books. For example, Vamadeva was a great Rishi. By birth, he was a Jnani. Shuka by birth was a Jnani. So like that, suddenly some other people, they became Jnanis. We see such, say, examples in our books. So like that, another point of view is, Pratibodha means Nirnimitto Bodhaha. Something which is suddenly caused. Without any cause, that realization comes. As in the case of some great people like Vasisha, some Vamadeva and people like that. Then pratibodhaha, yatha suptasya, just as in the case of a sleeping person. Suddenly, for a sleeping man, he wakes up without any great reason, isn't it? Yatha suptasya ityartha parikalpayanti. Then, parikalpayanti means they visualize. Some people, they do like that. Then, sakrut vijnanam pratibodha ityapare. Sakrut vijnanam. Suddenly, sakrut, like a flash. Sakrut means just once. Asakrut, of course, is frequent. Sakrut is once. Sakrut vijnanam. Suddenly, just as a one flash it comes. Pratibodha. Pratibodha again is realization. Ityapare. So here this pratibodha word is totally taken in a different sense. Ityapare. Then Shankaracharya says, whatever you say, it doesn't matter. Whether you say nirnimittaha or sanimittaha or sakrudva, asakrudva, whatever you say, it is unnecessary because they are certain rare cases. They are not universally applicable cases. Sakrudva, asakrudva and all these things, they are not universally applicable cases. You are not, you and I, we are not Vasishtha and Vamadeva, you are not Shuka Yogendra. So it is not applicable to all of us. What is applicable to all of us is the hard process. We have to do some Chitta Shuddhi. After Chitta Shuddhi, you have to do Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. In that process of Nididhyasana, you have to get hold of this Pratibodha Pratyegatma. Then you have to do this dhyana on this particular thing, because this particular shloka, mantra itself is for manana. It's a manana shloka. So we have to dwell on this thing. You have to negate all this nama rupa and slowly hook on to this sat and chit only, and then you realize this. So this is what is ultimately applicable. So that is what Shankaracharya is going to say. Whatever you say that this is something which is not caused by anything, suddenly it comes like a flash, all these things are okay, but then they are not universal examples. They are rare examples. They are exceptional cases. So that is what he says. Nirnimittaha sanimittaha sakrudva asakrudva pratibodha evahi saha. Whatever you say, whether you call it nirnimitta, uncaused by anything, sanimitta, caused by something, or sakrudva, asakrudva, whether it comes like a flash or in some other process, pratibodha evahi saha. It is really an awakening. Pratibodha is awakening, that is realization. Pratibodha is, in that sense, Pratibodha is used as realization. It is realization only. And why do you call it a realization? So he says, Hetu. Hetu means a cause. He is showing a Hetu. Why? What is that? Now we are coming to the second line. Amrutatvam hi vendate. We saw that first the line. Pratibodha viditam matam amrutatvam hi vendate. Amrutatvam hi vendate. That is because he attains amrutatvam. Hence, amrutatvam hi. Listen carefully. He means yasmat, because. Because a person, he attains amrutatvam, it has to be known as the real knowledge. Pratibodha viditam. That is, that has to be known as right understanding, not real knowledge, right understanding. It has to be taken as right understanding when a person knows Atman as the underlying principle in every cognition, because that is the Pratibodha, that is actually the real understanding, because such a person who realizes like that, he attains Amrutatvam. So that is the connection there. So he is explaining Amrutatvam Amarana Bhavam Swatmanyavasthanam Moksham hi yasmat Vindate labhate Yathoktat pratibodhat Pratibodha viditatmakat Tasmat pratibodha viditameva Matam ityabhiprayaha. So here we are now talking of Amrutatvam. So we know what is Amrutam. Right from our childhood we have seen movies. In all these films, the gods and demons, they fight for this Amrutam. And then our knowledge of Amrutam is, it is some sort of divine drink. In fact, all our films also, they show that Devendra is always having a nice golden cup, and then in that golden cup some Rambha, somebody comes and then pours some wine, some Amruta. This man keeps on drinking, and because of that they are Amrutas. Amrutas means they are all immortals. They are all immortals because they drink that divine nectar. So that is what we see. So what is the meaning of that Amrita? Amrita actually means the real meaning of Amrita. Devatal, when we say that all these gods are drinking Amrita, with it only we have to understand that these people, they are knowing the Atma. By knowing the Atma, they are becoming Amrita, not by drinking that nectar. So that is the actual meaning we have to take from what is that silly, say, the way it is depicted in a movie. Unfortunate, it is very unfortunate that our movies have done a great damage to us. Our movies have done a great damage to our understanding of our own, text. Of course, Puranas also have done some little bit of, because all these things, they projected as some sort of stories. And then when you project the stories, so the Amrita, okay, you have to visualize a sort of drink. And then, okay, Devas are the people who drink. So when that, Samudra Manthan takes place, when that milk ocean was churned by gods and demons, then one of the main product for which they were actually churning the ocean was this Amrita. And what is that ocean of, milk? Ocean of milk is nothing but the human mind only. And all these gods and demons are nothing but our own Indriya Vrutayaha. Chandogya Upanishad Shankaracharya says, Devaha Shastrodbhasita Indriya Vrutayaha. These Indriya Vrittis which have been purified, purified by this Shastra, they are the Devas. Which are unpurified Indriya Vrittis, impulsive Vrittis, they are the Danavas. Impulsive, sensual, given to sensual pleasures, they are the Danavas. But unfortunately, we portray Devas as some people are some drunkards who are enjoying some dances and the revelry in that Swargaloka, etc., etc. So that is the unfortunate thing which we have by translating philosophy into a story. So that is the damage done to philosophy. Anyway, Amrutatvam, Amarana Bhavam. So this Amrutatvam means Amarana Bhavam. So this one who knows this Atma, he attains this Amarana Bhavam. So why? Because Atma is something which is of the nature of consciousness. It is an illuminer which is there, which is whether the body-mind complex is there or not, it is the illuminer. It is not the Atma which again transmigrates. It is not as though it is the Atma which is transmigrating. What transmigrates is only the Linga Sharira. We have seen in the Kena Upanishad Bhashya and all these things, Linga Sharira is the thing which transmigrates. Linga Sharira is again illumined by Atma Chaitanya. There is no doubt about it. Chaitanya is very much there because it again goes with that mind, buddhi component and all those things are there. It is again illumined by consciousness, but it is not the consciousness itself which is transmigrating. Consciousness is again like the same sun's light, untouched by anything, unaffected by anything. So that we have to remember. So once we realize that our real nature of that consciousness, then whether the body dies or not, we have again seen in the second chapter of Gita, Najayate mriyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyaha, all those things we have to relate here. Because we realize that Atma, by realizing that our real nature is that of consciousness, then we realize that it is something which is undying. So that is what it is. Amrutatvam amarana bhavam. Then Swatmani avasthanam. That is staying in one's own Atma. Swa Atmani avasthanam. What is that Swatmani avasthanam? That is not we say that we are in this room right now. Or we are in this body, I am in this my body, you are in my body. Body means again Indriyas, mind, etc., etc. But that is not Swatmanyavasthanam. Swatmanyavasthanam is knowing the real nature, rejecting this body-mind complex, rejecting the upadhis, rejecting all our appellations, rejecting all our identities, rejecting the fact that I am a particular person, I am a Brahmin, I am a Hindu, I am an Indian, I am this, I am that, etc., etc., rejecting all these things, then that is what is Atmani Avasthan. You reject all this Namarupa and then remain in your original status. As Swami Dayananda says and Swami Tattvavidananda says, that space-like awareness, as they say. So you remain in that space-like awareness. So that is it. That is the Swatmanyavasthanam. Then that is what is moksham. Swatmanyavasthanam moksham. That is what is moksha. That is, you are liberated. You are liberated from all this baggage. So all this baggage called body-mind complex, all the baggage called your love, hate, etc., etc., all the baggage called all your identities, etc., they have been dropped. So then, moksham he yasmat vindate. Vindate means labhate, he attains. So when once you realize this, when you are catching hold of that sat and chit only, leaving all this nama rupa, then you are in that state of awareness. Then you are, that is what is called amrutatva, that is what is called freedom from all this baggage. Then yathokta labhate, how yathoktat pratibodhat. Yathoktat pratibodhat means by such pratibodha, by such awakening, by such realization, by such pratibodhat. Then again he is qualifying, he is again explaining what is that pratibodha. Pratibodha viditatmakat. Pratibodha vidita atmakam. Pratibodha vidita atmakam. That means, that is, in every cognition the self is known. Pratibodha vidita atmakam. So its atma is known in every cognition. So that is what is pratibodha vidita atmakam. Pratibodha vidita atmakat is Panchami Vibhakti. Because of that. Because its atma is something which is known in every bodha. Its atma is known in every bodha. These are all slightly complex sentences, Shastra terminology. For example, this tvat, then all these things. What is this? Pratibodhat, pratibodha viditatmakatvat. So all these things, this is basically a Shastra paribhasha. So we have to understand we have got the twin problem of understanding the concept and also understanding the language. So that is it. So yathoktat pratibodhat, by that pratibodha. Then what is that pratibodha? Pratibodha viditatmakat. So it is that where its atma is known in every bodha, in every cognition. Pratibodha viditatmakat. Tasmat pratibodha viditameva matam ityabhiprayah. So whatever you say, sakrudva, asakrudva, whether it is sanimittam or nirnimittam, whether it is suddenly, whether it is uncaused by anything or whether it is just coming like a flash, whatever you say, the ultimate process is one. The process is that you have to stay in your state of awareness. The ultimate process is you have to stay in that state of awareness. You have to give up nama rupa, etc. You have to be your own self, swatmani avasthanam. So that is what is required here. Bodhasya hi pratyagatma vishayatvam cha matam amrutatve hetuhu. So amrutatve hetuhu, the cause or the reason for calling it amrutatvam, he is saying, what is that? Bodhasya hi pratyagatma vishayatvam. You see a bodha, you have a cognition, let us say. Bodhasya, what is the vishayam there? If I see a pen vishayakam bodhaha, isn't it? Pen vishayakam means it is related to a pen. If I see a tree vishayakam bodhaha, that is, cognition is related to a tree. So here he says, bodhasya hi pratyagatma vishayatvam. That is, you dismiss the pen, you dismiss the, say what is that, a tree, you dismiss the book, etc. You catch hold of the pratyagatma. You catch hold of the atma which is enlivening it. You just see the light which is, say, focused into the room and not the objects. You dismiss the objects, you see the light. So that is the thing. So you dismiss the objects, you see the light which is illumining all that. So that is it. Bodhasya hi pratyagatma vishayatvam, not vishaya vishayatvam. You can note down, otherwise this is a complex sentence which is very difficult to understand. The bodha, the cognition should not be vishaya vishayakam, but pratyagatma vishayakam. The bodha should not be vishaya vishayakam, but pratyagatma vishayakam. Don't see the object, see atma. So that is, in brief, that is the meaning. Don't see the object, see the atma. So bodhasya hi pratyagatma vishayatvam cha matam. Matam means it is well, in that case, it is properly understood. Matam means understood, isn't it? Matam is properly understood. So, in this case, it should be accepted as real knowledge. When you are dismissing that Vishayakatvam, and then when you Vishayatvam, and then when you are catching hold of Pratyagatma Vishayatvam. Bodhasya hi Pratyagatma Vishayatvam. You dismiss that Vishayatvam. You dismiss that pen Vishayakam knowledge. You dismiss that Vruksha tree Vishayakam knowledge. You catch hold of the Pratyagatma Vishayakam knowledge. So that is the hetu, that is the reason for Amrutatvam. So we will continue in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti